And then not from mines, obviously, from car accidents, motorcycle accidents, ill health. 1 out of 22,000.
So how are we going to resolve this? You've obviously stopped the inflow. We got this other little problem here to clean up 10 million with a knitting needle, Jody?
Yeah, it's a tough job.
I mean, how long is this going to... Is this possible, or are we just going to have to... Come on, technology, figure this out.
What's made it possible is the leadership of Canada, the leadership of my organization, the International Campaign to Ban Landmines, which pushed through in 1 year's time this treaty banning the weapon. If we didn't have Lloyd Axworthy breaking the diplomatic mold and challenging the world to do something about this horrific global contamination last October of 1996, the governments wouldn't have dared do anything. So we've worked very closely with your government to bring about the treaty, and now it's going to become law faster than any treaty in history. It lays the groundwork.
Okay.
But then we've had...
Then you got to get them out of the ground.
Well, there's commitment on the part of governments and citizens to help with the cleanup and with taking care of the victims. I'm here in Canada now because of just such an initiative. There's a group called Consort Caritatis, and it's a group of fabulous classical musicians, and they, of their own desire to help, put together this CD. It's Verdi's Requiem, and they recorded it in Hungary this summer, and I came up for the inaugural concert this weekend. It was just stunning. Stunning. Howard Dick, the Frey brothers. It was very beautiful and very inspiring to see citizens who have their own very full lives giving of their time and talent. They donated everything, and all the proceeds will go to mine victims. Okay, now can we buy these? Yes, you can. And they're like out at music stores around? They will be at Music World. Music World, okay. Yes. Okay, if you'd like to help, and I know you'd like to help. The United States still has not signed this incredible treaty. This is incredibly true. The United States, unfortunately... I know that they were a little preoccupied at the time with his other landmine that blew up in his face. So, is that the problem? I wish I could blame it on that witch hunt going on in the United States. A witch hunt I don't support, by the way. Okay, what do you say about that? I think his personal issues are his personal issues. I really think it's a partisan witch hunt that is diverting energy from very important issues taking place all over the world that needs leadership. But we still disagree on the landmine issue, the president and I, even though I don't support the witch hunt against him. What is his position on the landmine issue? Well, as most of the world knows, the president chose to let the Pentagon of the United States decide policy. He did not act as a commander-in-chief and tell the Pentagon that he had to weigh all of the other political and humanitarian issues at stake globally and sign the treaty. He deferred to the Pentagon when all of our NATO allies have signed this treaty. Why would the Pentagon not sign it? Is it because they're into, promoting war is the phrase that goes through my mind, but... One of my favorite comments that many have made is that the military's never met a weapon they didn't like. The military wants to have every weapon at its disposal. So he's left this decision up to the Pentagon. Guess what they're going to say, and guess what they did say. So do we need the United States to make this effective, or can the rest of us go ahead and they'll come following along? In my view, what we have seen with this fabulous initiative is that in the post-Cold War world, when we're not having to worry about the United States dominating one bloc and the Soviet Union dominating the other bloc, countries are realigning their view of how you conduct diplomacy in the post-Cold War world. With this initiative, with the Canadian leadership, smaller and mid-sized governments coming together with civil society in the form of our NGOs, non-governmental organizations like UNICEF, like Human Rights Watch, like Amnesty. We are a coalition of 1,300 NGOs in 75 countries. 1,300 NGOs. Now, those are all the good guys wearing the white hats that are out trying to make this place a better place to live. Well, and in this one, we succeeded. Yes, you did succeed. And this is a lady's been wearing a white hat for a long time. And as to why Jody decided to dedicate her life to helping to save the world, you'll have to come back after that, after this break, to find that out. In the meantime, later, energy healer Julie Motz shares her secrets for healing by touch. Corey Hart is back with a new look and a new album. He's here Thursday.
Jody Williams, winner of the 1997 Nobel Prize for Peace. My God, you must have just been, the day you heard it, where were you?
I was in bed at 4 o'clock in the morning in Putney, Vermont.
And the phone rang?
From Norway, yeah, and it was the Norwegian television of all institutions. Woke me up at 4 o'clock to say, can we call you back at 4:40? And I'm serious.
Yeah.
4:40. And I go, yeah, but why'd you bother to call me now? Now I got 40 minutes to be nervous, right? Are you going to call me back to see how I feel about the other, you know, the other guy getting it? What are you doing? They called back in 40 minutes and said, the international campaign, and you have been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. It's pretty amazing.
You must. What did you do? You did.
I said, let me call my mom and dad, please.
Aww. Well,
it's
yeah.
true. I called my parents and my sisters. Yeah.
What comes with the Nobel Peace Prize? You get a monetary value, $100,000. I guessed. Is that about right? More?
The prize is $1 million, which was split evenly between me and the campaign.
Okay, and you get something else? You get like a medal or a thing?
Well, you get the Nobel medal, which is
it is a medal.
It's a solid gold picture of Alfred Nobel.
What was the Nobel family involved in?
Interestingly enough, Mr. Nobel made his money inventing dynamite.
Sort of an oxymoron here, eh?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I made the dynamite and you made peace. I'm going to help you out here.
Well, apparently part of his thinking, I read a very fascinating history of the first woman who received the Peace Prize. And it was she who actually influenced him to create a prize for peace when he was creating the other Nobel Prizes. And apparently part of his thinking when he created dynamite was that he was going to create such a horrific weapon that people would be so afraid of it they would stop war.
I think that's been the theory behind the atomic bomb, too, wasn't it?
Didn't work, did it?
We had a lot.
No,
why have you given your life over to, oh, excuse me, just let me quote you just a couple of lines here. I would like you to read your poetry, but what is this one? This is about El Salvador. I come out of my burnout after 11 years of trying to participate in their fight. The world will probably again send shivers down my spine because it is a word that conjures up visions of vulture spirals over garbage dumps full of mutilated bodies, or men and women suspended by body parts not meant for suspension in not-so-secret torture chambers of the security forces, or priests and nuns sacrificed on the altars of it. My God, woman, what have you seen?
Well, I've had a few run-ins with the death squads myself in El Salvador. I grew up in the United States during the Vietnam War period. It was the defining issue of my generation. It's affected our president, Clinton, as a matter of fact. And I thought the U.S. intervention there was misguided. And when they were starting to do the same thing, in my opinion, in Central America in the 80s, I did not want to sit back and watch it happen and then for the rest of my life feel bad that I didn't try to stop it. So I started organizing to stop U.S. intervention in Nicaragua and El Salvador.
You have a second reason.
My oldest brother was born deaf. My mother had German measles in the first trimester of her pregnancy, and this was back in the late, 1947. And we lived in a very small town in Vermont. And you know how people are. People are mean to people they don't understand, and children can be particularly mean. And kids in the neighborhood were mean to my brother because he couldn't speak, so I spoke for him. I was his voice, if you will. And as he got older, he developed schizophrenia, so it became even more difficult. And since I couldn't save my brother, I think I decided to try to save the world. It's a little emotional remove.
Doing a really fine job. I mean, we need people in white hats out there. Jody's also a poet. And she is, I was reading some of your poetry. I would ask you to read that one. It's a
Can I read the one about my mom?
You can do whatever you want. You can read the one about your mom.
Well, the one I wrote to my mom.
To your mom.
My mom, I wasn't a kid who grew up not talking to my mother. I grew up telling her too much. She wished I wouldn't tell her all the things I did. And
you told her everything?
Yeah.
Everything?
Yeah.
Why? Would you tell your mother everything?
Because she's a cool chick.
To my children, I don't want to know everything, okay? Please.
My mother's the same. She keeps saying, don't tell me. It's too late. I already told her everything. But my mother was of Italian Catholic heritage. My grandmother's Mariana Bertolino.
Oh.
And you'd be neurotic. You worry, right? You worry to protect your children.
Yes.
My mother worries about everything, whether you need to or not.
Yes.
We were not allowed to ride our bikes in Vermont until June because there might be a patch of snow that you would hit with your wheel and fall over and get run over by a car.
I think my mother met your mother.
So I wrote a poem to my mother called Ode to My Italian Mother. And it goes like this. She sees the dark lining in every silver cloud, certain that her obsession with the dark side holds bad luck at bay. And that's
beautiful.
Mom's view.
That's just beautiful. It's so true.
If I worry about it, it won't happen.
You know, I think that is the basis of the theory of worrying. My mother was Scotch, and the Scots are
I
great.
got that in me too. My father's side.
Really?
Yeah.
So you got Italian, Scotch, with a little Catholic thrown in. No wonder you have to save the world.
A lot of Catholic thrown in.
A lot of Catholic thrown in. You got the guilt. Well, the Scots are really good worriers, and I think it's the same theory. If I worry for my children, they will be okay.
Yeah, and if I don't worry.
But didn't you learn how to worry from your mom? I mean, I did. I had a black belt, and I went, where did I learn this? And one day I listened to my mother, and I went, that's where I learned it.
I used to worry, and then I decided that it was a waste of my time and energy. And I decided that the best thing I could do in life was figure out what made sense to me, what was important to me, and then give every day to whatever that important thing was. And it would give back to me because I was doing what I cared about.
And that's what you're doing with your life.
Yeah.
Have you ever been really afraid for your life?
My mother's been afraid for my life.
No, but have you ever been in a situation?
Yes, but no, I did not.
Where were you?
In El Salvador.
With the death squad?
Yes.
Where were you in the...
It was midnight, and I was driving home by myself, and I was chased home by them one night. And I managed to drive better than they did, so I escaped.
If they had caught you?
I don't like to think about that part. They didn't catch me. I went in and went to bed.
It's such a pleasure to meet you, you know. It's so good to know that you're out there wearing your white hat, because we need people like you.
Well, we also need people like Consort Caritatis. I really want to commend...
Oh, yes, wait a minute.
Come on, get that thing out.
Buy this. Buy the CD, okay?
No, I'm not saying it just because of buy the CD. I'm saying it because...
I am. Buy the CD, okay?
I'm not saying don't buy the CD.
We're just saying buy the CD because it's wonderful and you can help a good cause.
It is wonderful, but it's indicative of how much public awareness there is around the world on this issue. People everywhere, in their own way, take initiative to help, and that's what these fabulous singers have done on their own.
I'm going to end this interview with the promise from you that the next time you're anywhere near Toronto, you promise you'll come back and talk to us again.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, it's a date. The winner of the 1997 Nobel Peace Prize, Jody Williams, buy the CD, okay? We'll be back in a sec. Bye, bye, bye. Next, Canada's favorite children's entertainer, Rafi. My next guest is a superstar in the world of children's entertainment. His books and recordings sell in the millions, and his concerts delight fans and their parents. The Life of a Children's Troubadour is a new book that tells the story of his journey. And it's interesting on a personal note that I've known Rafi for a long, long time. And he's friends with some people on the show. And when I read this book, I went, wow, there's so much in here that I didn't know and so much that amazed me. Ladies and gentlemen, an extraordinary human being, Rafi. Hello, Rafi. You won't get my balls. I guess because I know you, and when you meet somebody, there's always so much more to people than, you know, when you meet them. And my goodness, what an amazing life you've had.
Lots of stories, huh?
Yeah. I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I even marked a couple of pages that I went back to. But the reason for you writing this occurred at an extraordinary moment in your life.
Yeah, both of my parents passed away, Dini, as you know, 3 years ago, on the same day, of different causes. And it was it was such a stunning event that I knew immediately that my life had changed, that one era was over, and it was the beginning of a new era. And I had to make sense of it for myself, but I also felt that I wanted to write about their tales as well as my travels.
I mean, that's extraordinary that happened to your parents.
Yes.
It's like tales of the unexplained.
You know, you hear sometimes of someone surviving another by 6 weeks and then going, right?
Yes.
but you rarely hear about someone hearing, as my father heard the news that my mother had passed away, and then he chose to exit that same night.
They were obviously soulmates who were so intertwined that their existence was interdependent.
Yes, yes.
What an amazing thing. And your father, of course, of all the time I've known you, I didn't know your dad was so famous.
You didn't?
No.
Dini.
I had no idea.
Dini.
I know, I just read.
I mean,
like
the guy was famous.
Are you kidding? He was like one of the greatest photographers that ever lived of portraiture. His name is Kavuk.
That's right. Tell me.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's done all of the most famous people. His portraits hang in galleries, and he's like incredible.
And my brother, Onig, still does that great, masterful Kavuk portraiture in Toronto today. So he's the third generation Kavuk.
Kavukian.
Kavuk. That's the portrait name.
Kavuk.
Kavukian is the family name, yes.
Did your father do the famous portrait of Winston Churchill and get the look in his face by pulling the cigar out of his mouth?
No, that was another Armenian. That was Karsh.
Okay. What happens? Why do Armenians like to be great photographers?
We have a way with the camera, huh? We know people.
Is that it? We know people?
We look at you, we see the soul, huh?
Is that how your father would say?
Why am I doing an Italian accent?
I don't know. I thought you were trying to do your dad for a sec.
No, I don't know. The family's been talented, certainly our family. My grandfather was a photographer as well, so that's what I mean about Onig, my brother, being the third generation.
That's incredible. Who took, look at this, you got to see this, man. This is like, look at the picture on the cover of Raffi when he was little. Look at him.
I'm going to blush.
I know, well, you should. It's so damn, look. Aww. With his little fez on.
My dad took that photo in 1949 in Cairo.
What an extraordinary, and the look on your face. It's incredible, Raffi. And yet your journey to becoming a children's singer, I was unaware of that too, and that's quite interesting how that happened for you, because you sure didn't plan on it.
No, and there were a number of turning points and pivotal events, and there were a number of transformations. I mean, it was interesting writing this book because, Dini, my life, as I look back, kind of neatly divided itself into 7 chapters. The 7th one being called Simple Gifts, and it's about the present, because I do perceive my present life as a blessing of gifts. So it was an extraordinary experience, going back, retrieving old memories, and writing a book, I found out, is kind of like being a movie director, where you're lighting the scenes, and you're thinking about what characters you want. How are you going to dress them? You're going to talk about the weather that day? What are you going to talk about? And you have that power as a writer. It was a fascinating experience.
But the experience of going back through your life must be an incredible experience.
Emotionally demanding, but rewarding in the cathartic
Got to face a lot of things. Huh?
Yeah, and once you do and you move through them, having made peace with them, the reward is the cathartic, therapeutic effect of it.
What did you make peace with through this writing? What was your...
Oh, well, you have to read the book to find out. Many things. Many things.
Yeah, your family was an interesting family, brilliant and very driven and focused, and wanted you to follow the path, but no, sir.
No, I heard the beat of a different drummer and went on my own way. Now, my sister also went her own way, and she's become
She was 17, you were 21, you both left the same day.
When we left home.
That was not a good day in the old household, was it?
But how could my parents know that my sister would one day become commissioner of Ontario's Information and Privacy Commission? How could they know that?
How could they know you would become the genius, the child's entertainer?
To thine own voice be true.
To thine own voice be true.
Says the old maxim, and I think that's so important for everybody.
It's just hearing that voice. It's like listening to it and hearing what you're supposed to do.
And in order to hear it, you've got to make room. You've got to put other voices at bay for a while, whether those voices are parental or societal. You've got to go on your quest for your inner voice. And that's the heroic journey.
And that's what Rafi has done, and he shares that in this book, The Life of a Children's Troubadour. We'll talk more with Rafi in just a sec. Tomorrow, Rita McNeil shares her life stories from her new autobiography.
But we knew their heart, and we knew their...
We're back with children's entertainer Raffi, and one of the things that I liked very much that I discovered was the writings of, how do you say his name correctly?
Lao Tzu.
Lao Tzu. There's this beautiful, where is it here, about water.
He was an ancient Chinese sage. And where is that?
No,
there it is. Nothing,
oh, yeah, but I didn't notice it there. I actually read it there. That water was, here it is. I happened on the passage of his that said water was the strongest substance because it could take the shape of any container and so not be broken, and in time could erode mountains. I went, that is so beautiful.
That's out of the classic Tao Te Ching.
The Tao Te Ching?
Yes. You've heard of Taoists?
Yes.
Yes, it comes from Tao. Tao is the way, it's the current of life, the flow of life.
And this is one of the, Lao Tzu is one of the students of the Way?
Well, he wrote about the Way. I mean, I think the reason you're mentioning it is because this was one of the pivotal influences in my life.
Yes, this really was a big moment.
I was in first year at the University of Toronto, actually Victoria College I went to, and I was in the library reading Lao Tzu, and when I read that water was the strongest substance, it really flipped my mind, and I walked out of that library that day profoundly moved by the wisdom in this book, and my world changed because I was introduced to the concept of paradox. And it just took me out of a black or white world to a much more comprehensive and complex world of complementarity.
Is that what paradox means to you? What does paradox mean to you?
That apparently opposite things can be true. How can water be the strongest substance? Well, if it
erodes mountains over time.
If you broaden the time frame,
right.
Yeah, it can be. And water finds its own level.
Right.
It's a lovely metaphor.
How do you find when you entertain children, because you've done both, you've traveled the world, you've entertained adults, and then you went to children. What is the difference between a crowd of adults and a crowd of children, Rafi?
Well, children who come to my concerts, if it's their first time to see a show, say they're 3 years old or 4 years old, they sometimes don't even know what a concert is. They don't know how cassettes make sound.
All right.
They don't know how I got into their cassettes, because they asked me about it. They don't know what an encore is. One time I was doing a concert in California, and I came back on stage for an encore, and a 3-year-old boy in the front yelled out, "Why is he coming back?"
So they're just honest. They're so honest.
And he was just trying to make sense of the moment, because he didn't know what an encore was. I had waved goodbye and said, "It's my closing song." And that's what I love about children, Dini, is they are working hard, young children are, to make sense of the world. They're the most reasonable people I know.
The energy that you feel from children is
pure love.
How wonderful to be with people like that.
It is my privilege to work with kids.
I remember the time when they said that Raffi was, you remember that? Raffi wasn't going to entertain children anymore. He was going to go off and be a other kind of singer. And like the world took a deep breath and went, "What? No." But they misinterpreted.
Well, as I say in my book, I had only put the children's work aside for a while so that I could respond in a different way with a deeper voice to the state of the world as I perceived it in 1989, 1990. I did my ecology album, Evergreen, Everblue, which, by the way, has become a staple in classrooms all across North America.
Good for you.
But in chapter 6, called Homecoming, chapter 6 of my book, I talk about returning to the concert stage. Very happy to do so in 1993, and I've been joyfully with this work ever since, except for the 2.5 years to write this book.
2.5 years?
Yes.
It was worth it, Rafi. It's wonderful reading. I really enjoyed it, and knowing you, I enjoyed it just that little bit more. And I guess anybody who ever grew up with you or heard about you would really enjoy Rafi, The Life of a Children's Troubadour.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Where are you living now? Up next, energy healer Julie Motz talks about healing and recovery. I told you at the beginning of the show I started reading this book yesterday, and I knew that Julie was checking into the Royal York Hotel, and I phoned her and left her a message to give me a call. So we had a little chance to chat last night. You know, I'm really into alternative medicine and therapies, and this woman is extraordinary. She is the first non-traditional healer allowed to work side by side with heart surgeons operating in operating rooms throughout the United States. She uses energy healing techniques to help surgery patients who will then need less anesthesia, and they will recover a lot faster. In her new book, Hands of Life, she shares incredible stories of recovery. Please welcome an extraordinary woman, Julie Motz. Welcome. What is that blue thing? It looks like it's like a magic thing that you zip the universe with.
I wish it were, you know, but Superwoman does not have quite her heiress in me. No, it's just a piece of jewelry.
It's very beautiful.
Thank you.
A very beautiful thing. How did you get involved in working with people's energy in the first place?
Well, like so many healers, I came to it through a need for my own healing. In 1983, I fell and hurt my back in an acrobatics class. And my brother, the doctor, told me very quickly that Western medicine had nothing to offer me. I had started to have intermittent upper back pain. And I tried acupuncture, which only made it worse. I tried chiropractic, which would work for 24 hours at a time, and then the results would fade. And I was at a dinner party in Washington, D.C., where I had gone on one of my many fundraising ventures. I was a documentary filmmaker in those days. And my hostess began talking to me about a Japanese form of energy healing called Reiki. She was, at the time, in remission from ovarian cancer. She had had this form done to her, and she had studied it herself. And I mumbled something about my back, and the next thing I knew, she was leading me out of the dining room into the living room, stretching me out on this beautiful oriental carpet face down. And she said to me, I'm going to put my hands in various positions on your body, and wherever I feel a cool spot under my hand, I'm going to stop. I want you to bring your attention there and just reassociate. And in her very first position, she was kneeling at my head, and she had her hands on my back, and she said, there's a coolness on your left shoulder. And actually, the left shoulder had jammed up since the accident. And she said, I just want you to bring your attention there and free associate. And I had no idea what bring your attention to your shoulder meant. So I just said to myself, be your shoulder, Julie. And an image came to me of my mother with her hand raised to smack me across the face when I was 6 years old. And I burst into tears. And she said, the woman said, I'm going to draw the pain out of your body. And she began to lift her hand. And the image faded and the sobbing stopped and the pain was completely gone. And I was astonished.
Oh, I guess so.
Yeah.
What is this would be the normal. What happened? Who are these people? How does this work?
Yeah.
And this is how you got into energy healing, which is defined as?
It's defined as working with the energy fields of the body to help heal the body. Of course, you have to believe there are energy fields to the body in order for this to work, and in just about every medical system except our own on the North American continent, they do believe this.
Is there a source, an origin for people who studied and charted the energy sources in the body?
Well, the two most familiar sources, the two most familiar reference points, or maps as I call them, come from Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, which is the medicine of the subcontinent of India. And they are the acupuncture maps, which have to do with 12 channels that run through the body. If you put your hands over your head, 6 of them end in the fingers and 6 of them end in the toes.
Right, the meridians.
Yes, and then there's another map called the chakra map. And the chakra is the Sanskrit word for wheel, because thousands of years ago in India, where dissection was forbidden, what yogis, the great wise men, did was meditate and go inside their bodies. And they saw these 7 spinning vortices of light. And because they always saw them in the same place, it would be like every time you open the chest, the heart is in the same place. They assumed they had discovered an energy anatomy.
So all of these people in their meditations saw the same centers of energy in the same colors.
In the same places, yes.
And so they all went, whoa, well, if we are all seeing it, it must be.
Yes.
And these are called the 7 chakras.
Chakras.
And these are energy centers that spin in a clockwise direction.
Spin in a clockwise direction, yes. Yeah.
And that's what you work with people? With both things, the meridians and the chakras?
Well, actually, interestingly enough, at this point in my work, I only work with them when I'm in a hurry and I can't stop and tune in. So, for example, before surgery starts, and you know that you need the kidneys to function to keep the liquid in the body in an equal balance and to excrete the anesthetic fluid, and you need the liver to function to keep the clotting factor high, I will go directly to the acupuncture points for those organs and just send energy there. But usually, I don't bother directly with those systems anymore. I just kind of tune in an instinctive way and go wherever the body seems to need the healing.
What are you tuning into?
Well, what I'm tuning into is anything that I feel as an energy disruption, as a non-smooth flow of the energy that pulls me to it.
You know, in reading your book, I was, I guess, astounded when I realized if you take somebody in, okay, for heart surgery, man, what, they take veins out of their legs, they cut this open, pull it back, they take your heart, they cut it out, they take a strange heart, they put it in, you're unconscious, then nobody's ever paid any attention to, like, what the heck is going on with your body? And then you go in there, and that's what you work with. You help people realize and deal with the energy that might be slightly disruptive by this incredibly invasive, traumatic thing that no one's ever thought of doing before. It's just like, it seems so obvious to do this.
It certainly seemed obvious to me when I started doing it. It seemed like the most natural thing in the world. I'd actually been working with patients before and after their surgeries to help with recovery, and got very curious about what was happening in the operating room and what was happening energetically, and also what was happening physically and emotionally and spiritually.
You've been doing this for how long?
I've been working in the operating room since 1994.
To find out what has happened since 1994 to the patients that have undergone the heart transplants and the bypasses, and what changes, if any, Julie has seen through her work. Come back right after this. Thursday, Corey Hart performs live in our studio. Guests of the Dini Petty Show stay at the Royal York Hotel with its finely appointed guest rooms, rooftop herb gardens, world-class cuisine, and timeless elegance. The Royal York Hotel is the heart of comfort and style in downtown Toronto. We're back with energy healer Julie Motz. I have to tell you that this book is definitely worth reading. It is a fascinating journey. And I was telling Julie that I had seen on television a couple of years ago about Columbia University, and I guess it was the doctor you work with. Say his name again.
Mehmet Oz.
Mehmet Oz, and
Yes.
he was using these alternative things, and he was going to be writing it up, and I went, this is brilliant, the blending of these two forms of medicine, and there you are in the middle of it all. What's happened with patients since you started working with them in surgery and being there with them?
Well, for one thing, it's become, you know, at least the idea of having someone in the operating room with you besides the surgical team has at least started to float around in people's consciousness. So people are beginning to ask for that, which I'm very gratified by. Right. But a lot of things have happened, you know, in terms of, you know, the patient's own evolution. The thing that struck me, you know, when I first stepped into an operating room, the first thing that struck me is what a venue for healing, what a phenomenal venue for healing. People are so vulnerable. And we know that healing comes from vulnerability, from being open. You know, and here people are emotionally open because they're putting their complete trust in the surgeon, and physically, literally open.
They're completely open.
And I thought, you know, what an opportunity for healing. And then I discovered that patients were going on these elaborate emotional journeys during surgery, that a lot was happening besides, you know, physical things that were happening. They were re-experiencing old trauma, they were reliving this old trauma, and that very often this trauma went back to their prenatal lives. Because under general anesthesia, you hear, but you don't see. The auditory nerve doesn't go under. Somebody else breathes for you, and all these changes occur inside your body, and you have amnesia of the experience. The only other time that ever happens is in the womb.
The reason that all of this is restimulated is based on the premise that the body carries memory at a cellular level.
Absolutely.
And that's now proven scientifically and accepted and documented.
Well, actually, it's happened a lot through heart transplants.
Yeah.
You know, because we know that people who have heart transplants very often take on certain tastes and certain, you know, qualities of the people who've been transplanted. So we know personality is not localized to the brain. Personality exists in every cell of the body.
So if you look back in your own life, or any of us do, and you've had trauma in your life, and if your mother went to slap you across the face, you would go like that to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
And that trauma would be there, the pain. And there's a reason that the body stores the pain. Why is it? What does the brain do?
Well, essentially, it's the brain is saying, you know, I can't deal with this right now. I have to go run the world.
This is too much overload?
Yes, yeah, and also I have to do these other important things, so you take care of it, Harry, you know. And, you know, after many, many years, Harry finally says, well, look, you know, I can't be a shoulder and hold this memory for you at the same time. And if you, consciousness, aren't going to take responsibility for the memory, I'm going to stop being a shoulder.
Or a knee.
Or a knee,
or a part
whatever.
of the body that suddenly starts to break down. Or.
And that's when the brain has to start to give back to the body.
Your father is a
astrophysicist.
And you discussed this energy with your father, and what's your dad's reaction?
Well, his first response was, surely you're not talking about the kind of energy we discuss in physics, you know? At which point I actually led him out of his office, lay him down on the couch in the astrophysics library and held a pendulum over his chakras, these energy centers, and he had to watch my hand hold perfectly still while it started spinning. And I said, there's no air in this room, Daddy, there's no breeze, something is making this spin, what do you think it is? So he had to admit there was some kind of energy coming out of his body.
The energy of the body is the same energy of the stars, the same energy of creation, the same energy of the universe. It's in us, it's around us, it's within us.
Absolutely. Nature is efficient. It would be inefficient of her to invent something else just to run human beings.
We have touched the surface, I mean, like a bazillionth of an inch of this extraordinary piece of work. You are just an amazing woman, and I really salute what you've done out there. And you know when you're in that operating room, we're in there going, yay, Julie Motz, bravo, bravo. This is the book, Hands of Life. We'll be back in just a second, okay? Congratulations. Next, Michael Palin is the subject of our anniversary quiz.